so we are eager and happy to host tonight. I quickly want to point out the students who have helped with the event tonight. We have about 100 students. These are students from our civics classes who are here, and I was told to give a quick plug. Remember, students, you're supposed to be taking notes on scoring, and make sure you turn everything in at your assignment table before you leave tonight to get credit. We also have students from our JROTC program here today, so I just want to thank all of the students and their teachers who were here to support them in contributing to the dialogue that's here today. So again, thank you very much for being here at Lakeview High School.
Hello, 47th Ward. My name is Jason Colter. I'm the pastor of Ravenswood United Church of Christ, the convener of the 47th Ward Clergy Coalition, and on behalf of our sponsoring organizations, Forward Chicago, Indivisible, Lincoln Square, League of Women Voters Chicago, and the North Center Neighborhood Association, I would like to welcome you to the 47th Ward Aldermanic Board. Of course, we want to extend a word of thanks to Lakeview High School for opening their doors to us, for providing the facility, and really giving us a great platform on which to discuss the issues tonight. We incurred some expenses in organizing this forum, and so we made it possible for you to help out to defer those expenses with a voluntary donation if you are so moved by that spirit. There's women going around with donation cans. If you want to put a few dollars in there to help defray the cost, we would appreciate it. Any excess donations collected this evening will go toward the common pantry. Now I'd like to wait for the common pantry. Now I want to take a moment to introduce our moderator, Ken Davis, who's going to lead us through the program this evening, lay out the ground rules, and get us started. Ken is the host of the long-running Chicago Newsroom political discussion show on Chicago's CAN TV. Earlier in his career, he was the first news director at Chicago's WBEZ. And for more than 10 years, he was its program director and host of the daily discussion show. Ken also worked for more than a decade in Mayor Daley's administration, first as a spokesman for the Department of Environment, and then as director of the city's municipal television channels. He's lived in Chicago all his life, growing up at North and Kedzie in Humboldt Park, and attending Chicago public schools. And Ken has always loved Chicago politics, so this must be the best time of year for you, Ken, am I right? Amen. So without further ado, our moderator, Ken Davis. Give him a warm welcome.
In the interest of full disclosure, which of course is what we all have to have now, isn't it? I'm not from here. I'm from down Montrose, the other way, down in the 38th Ward. But it's a real pleasure to be here because, you know, those of us in the 38th Ward, we have to come here to eat and to, you know, and get entertained and stuff. So we all travel down Irving Park and Montrose all the time. And it's just a pleasure to be here. So thank you for that warm welcome. I thought it might be appropriate for us to thank tonight the one and only person who has made all of this possible, the former alderman of the 47th Ward, Mayor Robert who actually did it. He term limited himself and then just said, that's it, I'm leaving, so he could allow all of these folks to open up the discussion and draw all this information. It's already been said that we have a lot of Lakeview High School students here tonight, and I'm very happy that we're welcoming them. It is such a cool thing to stand here and see a lot of young faces in the crowd, because God only knows what we really need, isn't it? So let's kind of move along here and talk about the things that we have to do the housekeeping here. You, the panelists, will have 1 minute for an opening statement. Then you'll have 1 minute for a closing statement, not sequentially, of course. And you'll have a minute to answer each question that is posed to you. The opening and closing statements will be done in the order that you receive them here right now. So we're going to call it chair number 1 down there, chair number 8 down here. They were chosen by lottery or however, drawing hats, names for a hat. And what we'll do is we'll start the questioning at one end, and then we'll just kind of stagger it down so that nobody has to, Ray doesn't have to do the first question every time. Please note that we're asking that personal references about other candidates are out of order. Timekeeper is sitting in the first row right there. And that timekeeper is going to, the way it's going to work is when there's half a minute left on your speaking time, the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 30 seconds. So, because you're all smart enough to be on the city council, you all also understand that means that you're halfway through your presentation and you got to start to wrap it up. And then when you see that red sign, just like you see on the street, that says stop, it means stop. And my job will be to unceremoniously interrupt you and stop you when you get past the 60 seconds. Please note that there are cameras around, and we've got a live Facebook stream going on over there, and later on the entire thing will be up on YouTube, and we'll give you the links for that later on. We always ask, of course, that you turn off all of your devices, at least silence them anyway, because, well, you know, you've heard that a million times. And we request that you treat all the candidates fairly. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. No clapping, no cheering, no calling out, with the exception that after the closing statements, you may clap for your favorite candidate if you so wish. No campaign literature or signs are allowed in this room, and you may pick up campaign materials, as you already know, outside. There are tables everywhere. And also, it's just really cool to be in a building that's undergone this incredible renovation over the last couple of years. Look around you, this building has been redorned, and I understand that there's almost 1,400 kids here now, so it's actually growing, and it's a good, positive thing for the 47th Ward. Let's give a hand to Lakeview High School. Want to get started? Can we ask the first question? Let's do it. Yes. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do the opening statement. That's right. And each candidate, obviously, will have a chance to introduce themselves to you. And that's that 1 minute thing we were just talking about. So let's start in chair number 1 with WAY-KITZES. Oh, yeah, we should also mention that we have 2 mics to share. So when you're finished, please hand it down to the person to your left. Okay, Heather.
All right, thanks, Ken. Hi, I'm Heather WAY-KITZES. I'm running for alderman in the 47th Ward because I believe the city that works should work for all Chicagoans. I live with my husband David and our 2 kids in Ravenswood, Jack and Lily. Jack is a junior at a CPS high school, and soon he'll be off to college. But after he leaves here, he'll always call Chicago home. And I want the same to be true for his 3-year-old sister Lily. But the streets that she walks will be safer, the parks that she plays in will be cleaner and greener, and she won't have the same stress of 7th grade that he had because our neighborhood high schools will be the destination and not the second choice. For nearly 20 years, I've worked as a community leader and a neighborhood advocate. As your alderman, I am committed to engaging and listening, responding, and taking action. I commit to keeping our communities safe, informed, clean, and vibrant. And as your alderman, I will represent you fairly and accurately at City Hall. Thank you.
Wow, we didn't even have to put up the stop sign, did we? Thank you. All right, KIMBALL LADIEN is next.
My name is Dr. KIMBALL. I'm a physician and a scientist working at Methodist Hospital in 47, as well as at White Hospital in 46. My mother actually graduated second in her classroom here at 12 years old in 1938. But my grandmother, she was here in 1906. I graduated from Lincoln, so to say I heard in the community would be an understatement. My wife, unfortunately, was murdered 7 years ago, and one of the reasons I'm here, she always believes in making something good out of something very bad. If the only 2 things we do this year are to have after-school programs for all the kids and job programs for probation and parole, we can cut hate crime and murders 50% doing that alone. It's not a partisan issue, it's for everybody. And as a scientist, I have a very simple equation that could help to cut the pension and cut taxes at the top. Stop.
Jeff Jenkins.
My name is Jeff Jenkins. My wife Julie and I moved into the ward nearly 20 years ago. We bought our first and only home, started our family, and opened our small business. Our two kids, Max and Sam, attend Cooley Elementary, our neighborhood public school, where I served on the local school council for a full 6 years and have been a leader on education issues citywide, including the fight for an elected school board for nearly 10 years and the fight against charter schools opening in our ward. And I own a service. Midnight Service in the Parks is our citywide nonprofit, based right here in the 47th ward. We reach nearly 20,000 people all across Chicago, have raised over $300,000 for the 47th ward parks, and $1 million for parks citywide. I truly understand how to navigate the complex logistics of city government because I've been doing it for years, working with the Department of Buildings, the Park District at every level, aldermen all across the city, community leaders, religious leaders. The responsibility of the alderman is not new to me. I have the skill set, I have the experience. I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael NEGRON.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael NEGRON. I am husband to an amazing wife, Coral. We have two little kids, ages 5 and 3. My oldest is in kindergarten at Cooley. We are at a pivotal moment in our city's history with the most wide-open elections that we've had in 30 years. And our challenges are significant. We have to stabilize our finances, strengthen our schools both here and throughout the city, make our communities safer, and bring more opportunity outside of the downtown. And the next mayor and city council have to get to work on these issues right away. But here's the truth. There are no one-sentence answers or easy solutions to any of our challenges. Our problems are complex, and it will take tough decisions in the years to come to address them. With 15 years of experience in public service at City Hall and in Washington, D.C. under President Obama and Elizabeth Warren during the darkest days of the financial crisis, I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one. So I look forward to the conversation tonight, and I hope to earn your votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie Maloney.
Hi, my name is Angie Maloney. I'm a CPS music teacher, a mother, a musician, and also a social justice advocate. I'm also a longtime resident of the ward. Got my first apartment at Lawrence National in 1999. Same year I met my partner in the ward, and it stuck. We spent the first 10 years of our relationship trading off, one of us going back to school, one of us working full-time, slowly saving money to purchase a home in our community. And after about 10 years, we decided to put a lot of that financial resource towards creating a family, which is especially expensive for LGBT families. And once we got our finances stable again, we started saving again, but we were watching the market outpace us. We started to look around and wonder, is it possible that 2 working adults are not able to purchase a home in the 47th ward? And as I started talking with my neighbors, I realized that our story is not unique, and that affordability is a major issue in the 47th ward. And I'm also very concerned about affordability across the city of Chicago in different communities, as well as violence, equity, and schools. As a teacher, I vow to serve all Chicagoans.
Thank you. Gus KATSAFAROS.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Gus KATSAFAROS. I am the proud owner of Marmalade Restaurant on the corner of Montrose and Damon. I was born in Riverswood Hospital in 1973, and I took my first job in the neighborhood working for my Uncle Pete at the La Cipra restaurant that is in the same spot where Marmalade is now when I was not quite 12. I have seen this neighborhood take a complete 180 and improve drastically over the decades, and I plan on keeping that improvement going both for our schools, holding the line on real estate taxes, affordability for our seniors, and of course, making it a destination point for new small businesses like my own that help communities like ours thrive. Again, my name is Gus KATSAFAROS, and I will be honored to represent you in the City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus. Matt Martin.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Martin. I live in Lincoln Square with my wife, Caitlin, and our 3-year-old son, Isaac. I serve on the local school council at McPherson Elementary, co-founded the Heart of Lincoln Square Neighbors Association, and currently work at the Attorney General's office, where I've had the privilege of helping reform our police department and fighting against Donald Trump's awful immigration and healthcare policies. I'm running for alderman here because I believe that there are too many people in our ward and throughout our city, neighbors who are struggling with things that city council needs to start taking the lead on. Our areas are increasingly unaffordable, our schools are underfunded, and our public safety approach lacks the capacity to address root causes of crime. I believe our next alderman needs to tackle these challenges thoughtfully and aggressively with bold, innovative policies and with the sort of independence where you're not going to be able to be afraid to be shy to stand up to the next mayor or the next city council meetings. That's what I look forward to doing as your next alderman, and that's why I hope to earn your vote come next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen Dordek.
Hi, I'm Eileen Dordek, and I'm running for alderman of the 47th Ward. In the 22 years that I've made the ward my home, I've raised my children, established a business, and been an outspoken advocate for women's reproductive and LGBTQIA rights. As a social worker, this is the lesson I've learned. Service starts with listening, because when you listen, you can collaborate on solutions. I've helped people successfully navigate bureaucracies and complex systems to serve their needs. My career has been dedicated to helping people, not just to serving my own personal gain. I want to serve this ward and fight back against the system that we've had that has existed for decades, where the city council just doesn't stand up for himself and is not a check on the mayor. I want to fight for you. My experience serving the public is exactly what we need now and in the future.
Thank you all. We should also mention that Thomas Schwartz is a member of this esteemed group, but he has some other job. He fights fires, I guess, for the city of Chicago, and they told me he had to work tonight, so he's not able to be here. I must tell you that as someone from the 38th Ward, where we have a non-contested election, I'm just really jealous to be here and see all of this intelligence at one table. Let's begin with a kind of a combined question and history lesson here, and we'll begin the answering with KIMBALL. In fiscal 2018, the city's budget operated with a $115 million deficit. The city claims it will fall below $100 million, well, it did in 2018, but it will also go below $100 million in 2019. But Chicago's pension contributions are projected to increase from about $1.2 to $2.1 billion from now to 2023. Are you following that? That's about $1 billion. So please describe at least one specific spending cut or revenue increase that you would support to achieve a balanced budget in those out years, since these are the things that will happen during your term in the city council. Kimball, want to start?
As a physician, again, the motto of my safe haven program is a penny of prevention is worth $1 of cure. If we reduce gang crime, murders, and joblessness even 10%, we'd be saving over $500 million annually. My goal is 50% this year. That's $2.5 billion. As a scientist, I have a very simple equation, not simply than equals MC squared, but bottom line, it provides clean, renewable energy. It can save 2 to 3 trillion on a global basis. Here in Illinois, that translates to several billion. It can not only pay off the pensions, but it can also help to cut taxes, and to the extent, nobody has to say my word on anything, I'll share it with Tony Crankle, JB, anybody, and the people who benefit are everybody here. God bless you.
Jeff Jenkins?
Well, I would support our new governor in his efforts to get a progressive income tax pushed through. I would also support him in his efforts to get legalized marijuana. We can tax that at the state level and the city level. But I think it's really important to go after the root causes, and we need to empower the city inspector general to audit every alderman, every department, every program, every contract, because I'm confident, as Alderman Scott Waxback would say, we will find tens if not hundreds.
Pensions in the operating. The council and the mayor will need to address that by the end of this year. There are a lot of solutions that I support: a progressive income tax at the state level, recreational marijuana, allowing for more gaming. But those revenues won't materialize in time for the budget that is right in front of us. And so I think it's incumbent on us to have a frank conversation about that. I will support more efficiencies in this budget. I think we need to look to opportunities to consolidate with the county. There's a board of elections in the city. There's a board of elections in the county. We should explore merging those. We should look at other departments. I think we need to ensure that we are borrowing as intelligently as we can to get our debt service down. And then ultimately the next mayor needs to fight in Springfield for the city's fair share of any new revenue that comes out of Springfield. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Angie Maloney?
I agree with Jeff Jenkins that the first thing we need to do is have an independent fiscal audit to see where we can find misspending, where we can find corruption. Take the workers' compensation program, for example, a lot of wasted tax dollars. And then, number one, once we have that audit, I suspect that TIF reform would be a good place to start. We should cut all luxury developments for 2 to 4 years. Talking non-essentials need to be put on hold for 2 to 4 years and start paying down the debt. We have no way to justify fancy plazas, things like that. We can put that on hold. That's not essential. We have a huge debt crisis. We should not be spending on these aesthetics for a temporary basis.
Thank you, Andy. Gus, Katz. It's KATSAFAROS.
Don't worry about it. That's been getting my hard Irish. So, folks, some politicians dare to say to cut pensions on future state and city employees. I believe in cutting their pensions. There is no reason why we need 50 aldermen in the city of Chicago, first of all. That's lost 1 million in population since the 1950s. We are a third the size, if not less than New York, and have the same amount of aldermen. And they all are eligible for pensions. All they have to do is get re-elected once. A Chicago police officer has to be on the job for 20 years. CPS teachers, like my sister and my cousins that teach at Amundsen, have to be on the job, or I believe also for 20 years to be eligible for a pension. Cut their pensions, that's millions of dollars you can save right there. And as far as creating new revenue, the decriminalization, I think, first of marijuana should be a first step. It will save us millions in prosecuting people for using marijuana, and also keep a lot of folks that are nonviolent criminals out of jail.
Thank you, Gus. Matt Martin?
I think this is the appropriate question to start the forum off with, because it's the biggest challenge facing the entire city. And let's remember that budgets at bottom are a reflection of our values. And I think that we see with budgets where we're raising revenue on the backs of middle and low-income individuals through aggressive property taxes, fees on city services, nickel and diming folks with parking tickets. That's not the value that, those aren't the set of values that I have. And I don't think that those are the values that are in this city, in this ward even. And so that means a balance of things. Like several people said here, tips. We currently have $660 million a year that go into those. That's bad, that needs to get reformed. Our legislative inspector general needs to be put back into place so that folks like Alderman Burke are overseeing a workers' comp program that is an executive function, that should be in the mayor's office, not in city council. But then in terms of revenue, we know what we need to do, but we need courage. Things like a progressive city income tax, especially if the state doesn't come in and help. Marijuana legalization, and a tax on large real estate transactions in and around the downtown area. We know what we need to do, we just need courage to do it.
And DORDEK?
Thanks. As a social worker, I know that vulnerable populations are often where we end up putting a lot of the burden across the city and when we have policy. And so we need to stop relying on property taxes to take care of our, we over-rely on property taxes partially because, as other people have said, at the state level we don't have a progressive income tax. That's going to take a long time to pass through the state, but it's important we all talk to our state and local representatives to make sure they understand how strongly we feel about getting that done and reducing the reliance on property taxes in all the municipalities. I agree that we should legalize marijuana and tax it. It's also an issue of social justice. I believe that we should look at online gaming. And there are clearly a lot of things in City Hall that have been working the way they've been working for decades and don't work for us. There's a lot of simplification, zoning permits, and other things that we can do to reduce costs.
Thank you. We're going to just carry right on to the next question here.
could be a lot of consolidation amongst departments without eliminating jobs. I think we need to be really mindful of that too. It's a big city, we need people to run it. We also have to be mindful of the fact that coming up quickly we'll be renegotiating the CPS contract, CPD, and the fire department, as well as our recycling contract in 2019 or 2020. So looking at all of that, also collaborating with other levels of government for consolidation. I also support legalizing marijuana and expanding gaming, but I don't think we can smoke and gamble our way out of this one. So I would be mindful of how we do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question is actually almost like a follow-up because here in the 47th Ward, I know there's a lot of discussion about TIFs, and one of your home folks is Ben Jarofsky, who's a friend of mine, and he's been writing and yelling about it for about 30 years or something. So the question is about TIFs. I am told that there are currently 7 active TIFs in the 47th Ward. How will you utilize and manage TIFs to best serve the needs of the 47th Ward and the city more generally? Would you seek to eliminate or reduce the number of TIFs? And if you would, how would you do that? And of course the question now begins with you, LADIEN. No? Oh, you know, that's how I got messed up because there was the opening statements that I had forgotten about. You know, you get to be a certain age and these things happen. Let's begin the questioning with Jeff Jenkins. Uh-oh. There you go.
And I would follow Alderman Pilar's record of using TIFs for schools, for parks, and for public infrastructure improvements. I think that is the single most, that is how TIFs are supposed to be used, to benefit the public, absolutely. Now, as far as TIF reform citywide, we absolutely need TIF reform citywide. 33% of our entire city is covered under a TIF district. That is nearly, this year, approximately $1 billion that is being pulled away from our first responders, from our schools, from our parks, and going primarily for development. We need a full citywide audit of every TIF district, and if it is not eliminating blight, it needs to go back, that money needs to go back where it is needed, where it is desperately needed. So we do need a full TIF reform, and I absolutely stand with the Progressive Caucus on this one.
Michael NEGRON.
So my bottom line on TIFs is that they cannot be used as a slush fund for large corporations. I want to see more transparency in how our TIF dollars are currently being used, as well as what projects are being envisioned in the out years, which is where there's actually a lot of poor information. I believe that every year the City Council should continue to declare surpluses. That's when unused TIF funds are sent back to the schools and other taxing bodies. But I think there are good uses of TIF, which I suspect you'll hear a lot at this table. Use on infrastructure, on mass transit, schools, parks. It can be used to do improvements at small businesses. I think when we've gone more than 10 years without a capital bill from the state, cities have to be creative about how to invest in infrastructure. I think TIF, if it's used well, as it has been throughout the country, can be put to work on infrastructure to create jobs and opportunities. But here in Chicago, we have a sordid history, and that means more transparency, that means not using it as a slush fund, and that means aggressive surpluses every year. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Angie Maloney.
I support the Back to Basics ordinance that the Progressive Caucus has proposed. A TIF has to improve blighted areas, one that would not otherwise be developed if it were not for the TIF. There's no reason a project like Lincoln Yards needs to get our tax dollars, period. I would lead the charge in City Hall to reform TIFs, where we would making sure we would be able to donate any extra. I think Alderman Pilar has done a good job with the system we have and prioritizing schools with our TIFs. I think adding additions onto schools to lower class sizes is a great use of TIFs. However, beyond that, if we have money left in our TIF, it needs to go back to the general pool. We have way too many things to pay for right now. We do not even need to be putting up a community garden where we can get parents to pay for it. Let's put any extra TIF back into the general pool, reduce taxes, reduce the burden, start investing in areas that actually need it.
Thank you, Andrew. Gus.
Tax incremental financing. What it should read is take it from schools, because that's what they're doing. And this money is being misused and it goes to these developers that are putting out these high-end condos and developments throughout wards that don't need them. I've done real estate development in my past, and I had banking relationships. I would borrow money against things that I own, and it was my head on the line, not the taxpayers. We had shortfalls in teachers' pensions, yet we held out a $5 billion carry for the Amazon HQ2, which I spoke openly against in City Hall on the second floor. As far as citywide, I believe that if we have TIF dollars, they don't belong in Lincoln Square or downtown or any of these multi-billion-dollar projects. They should go to the blighted areas of our communities and keep schools open instead of closing them in the south and west side where they're needed the most.
Thank you, Councilman. Matt Martin.
I want to echo a few things that Gus said, which is when you think about TIFs, what they're taking away from schools and what they can provide is completely backwards. So in a school like McPherson, we have been the beneficiary of some TIFs recently in that we have a partial, not complete, new playground. But what that money really is needed for is to keep class sizes under 30, to make sure every student with special needs has classroom aids, to make sure that we have up-to-date technology and textbooks in the classroom, especially for students who don't have technology at home. And so when I hear, hey, we can use our TIFs in the 47th ward to bring in a new field, that's great, but that's not what we need. And we don't need new TIFs anywhere in the city. We don't need new TIFs on the south or west side. We need to take all that money, put it back into a pot, and make sure that not one alderman or woman working with the mayor's office can control that slush fund, but that all 50 aldermen and women get a collective say over how this entire $660 million a year is used. That's what we need to do going forward.
Thank you, Matt.
So just to take a step back, because we use the word TIF districts a lot, but we don't always know what it means. So taxes are capped at a certain level, and then all the money above that that's collected in taxes goes into a fund, and that fund can be used as a slush fund for the alderman who controls the area that the TIF district is in. And it's really important that we make sure that that money stays in circulation to provide the needs of the city, to pay off our pension bills, to provide education for students in the classrooms, to make sure that we have our needs met instead of just for development. And we really need to make sure that we utilize that term but for, that there's no TIF created but for it wouldn't be otherwise created, and it needs to be focused in blighted areas. But generally at this point, I think we need to put a moratorium on TIFs, on new TIFs, until we refinance our pension debt, because that, we were talking about that earlier, and that's really coming down the pipe quick.
Thank you, Eileen. Heather WAY-KITZES. Oh, let's get a mic down there.
The mic's also in trouble. So I believe in TIF reform, but I also believe in the good work that TIFs have done, especially in our area. Without TIF dollars, we wouldn't have a brand new metro station by my house at Ravenswood and Lawrence. We wouldn't have the Clark House in Clark Park. We wouldn't have Careywood Cup Field. We wouldn't have a lot of the improvements that have happened lately, especially since Alderman Flora has been in office. I think it's important to really address the programs, especially in the administrative costs. There's a lot of ways to save money there. Additionally, I think it would be okay to sunset TIFs. Like if the projects are finished, we could end the TIFs sooner than the 23-year lifespan. Additionally, I think we can draw smaller TIF districts. When I was with the Lakeview Chamber of Commerce, there was a small TIF in KIMBALL and Ashland, which was really great in revitalizing that area of the ward, which used to be in the 32nd ward. But I think using it in those ways, like still revitalize even neighborhoods that seem to be gentrified, there's work that can be done in those neighborhoods as well.
Thanks, Heather. KIMBALL.
Yeah, I'm going to put my scientist cap on. By doing a rigorous cost-benefit analysis and ranking priorities in terms of what we spend the money on, we can maximize the benefits to the greatest number of people. I've spent the last 30 years designing win-win systems to benefit everyone. In fact, I've got 3 books on the subject, anyone who's interested. Bottom line is, in addition to the after-school programs for the kids and the job programs for folks on probation, or for everybody on probation and parole, that's 50% reduction in gay crime. That's the biggest one right off. And something very simple. If we have cameras on every street and in every alley, we
down significantly, we'll also catch the people who are doing it. We have 8%, non-convictions, non-arrests, let alone non-convictions. There are a lot we can do to actually improve. I want to get away from politics as usual. I want to get to good government, and to me, good science is good government, and that's what I would like to do.
Okay, here's what I'd like to do. This is jumping out of the format just a little bit, but I've seen some of the other forums where they've done this, where they do a lightning yes/no round. Because TIFs is such an important thing. Let me pose the question to you all, and we can start again with you, Jeff, and just go down the line. As close as you can get to a yes/no answer, would you favor abolishing TIFs?
Yes.
Only when there are no public purposes that they can be used for, like infrastructure.
Is it yes, no?
It's yes, no, but, I understand that. We can give you a couple of seconds.
Temporarily. We are in a crisis situation financially. It's temporarily.
Yes, it should be abolished. Otherwise, it's just going to be abused by aldermen. Yes.
Yes.
Get the mics down there right there.
No, I don't support abolishing the TIF.
No, but they can definitely be modified to improve the outcomes, which is stuff in the other part.
Okay, thanks. That really helped clarify for me, because it's easy to criticize them, but at some point you have to say, well, are you criticizing them so much you're willing to get rid of them? Moving along, and this time, let's see, Michael will start, right? In 2016, and again, we have a little bit of a history lesson here. In 2016, after the controversial term of Faisal Khan as Legislative Inspector General expired, the Chicago City Council debated two alternatives for expanding the authority of the City Inspector General to oversee the City Council. I'm sure you all remember this. The council narrowly passed a more restricted version, which was supported by an alderman named Ed Burke, I believe his name was. It limited the ability of the IG to investigating specific misconduct allegations with no ability to investigate or audit committees or aldermanic programs. Our question, would you support an ordinance to give the city IG broader power to investigate and oversee the city council? And why or why not? We have a minute for each of these questions. I think we may not need it, but go ahead.
Yes, and you're right. I think this is a fairly easy one. I think the Inspector General should have authority over council operations and staff. I think it is clear that no entity of government should be shielded from auditing or oversight. And the Inspector General has had a good track record of unearthing waste, fraud, and abuse, as well as conducting investigations. And he should have, and his successor should have, the ability to oversee that highly political body of the Chicago City Council.
Thank you, Michael. Angie Maloney?
Yeah, definitely. The Inspector General should be able to investigate and oversee the City Council, see the consequences of not having that right now. And I think the even better news is that now's the time. The public is ready for it. The government officials can't say no to it. How can you defend not having it? So now's the time. Let's get in there and get it done.
Thank you. Yes?
Absolutely. The Inspector General should run not annual, semi-annual, monthly audits on the City Council. We've seen the abuse over the decades. We've had so much corruption on the city and the statewide level. But just keeping it in the City Council, constant audits would keep the end works of the City Council from acting as mob bosses instead of...
The stage is going to say yes, absolutely. And the question in my mind is, why don't we already have it? And the answer is simple. I think everybody in this room probably knows it by now. We have a mayor who historically does not prioritize this. And it's not just Mayor Emanuel, it's Mayor Haley before that, Mayor Haley before that. We have city council members who don't want to take it upon themselves to figure out who the best chairpersons of their committees are. They see that against the mayor's office. So we need to bring in not just the next mayor, but the next city council that's going to take this stuff seriously, starting with the IG, then looking at secondary employment. If Mike Quigley or Jan Schakowsky, who are the congresspeople of this area, can say we're not going to have secondary employment because it's prohibited under our ethical rules, we can do do that at the city council level too. And finally, making sure that we have inspectors general, not just we're going to be robust with regard to city council, but every single one of our departments, because there's waste, fraud, and abuse everywhere, and places like CPD, CPS, CHA need strong ones, not just the alderman.
Thank you, Alderman.
For far too long, city council has been aldermen who have fiefdoms. We have a strong city council system and a weak mayor, but we act like we have a weak city council and a strong mayor, and there's no reason for that. City council needs, so yes to the answer of Inspector General, when you have people with integrity who are honest and want to be public servants, what are they afraid of? And I agree with other people on the stage that there's plenty that can be done at City Hall to get rid of waste, to get rid of abuse. We can do better in Chicago than we've allowed ourselves to do. We can do better to have city council represent itself in its own, electing their own leaders. We can do better. We can be a check. When I go to city council, I'm going to be a check on the mayor, no matter who it is, even if I agree with her. I'm going to make sure to hold her accountable, and we need an inspector general who can hold City Hall, the mayor, and the legislative body accountable.
Thank you.
So I agree that we do need to expand the role of the Attorney General. Last week I stood with Lori Lightfoot at City Hall and signed on to her People First Pledge, which this is one of the items that it includes. It also includes eliminating secondary employment, looking at how we remap the wards and having that done by an impartial body, limiting terms for the mayor and city council committee chair people, all of those things that will actually help transform our city council, give the city council more and the mayor more accountability and transparency. I think that's really important. Full disclosure, I'm a registered lobbyist currently, and I can't sneeze without filing a report, and I think that the same should be true for our elected officials.
Thank you, Kimberly.
So I agree that the Inspector General is very, very important. They can also, anybody can abuse their power. IGs can abuse their power, as can alderpersons. By designing the systems to have transparency and accountability, number one at the top, so that anybody, any citizen can look at them. And this is not just the alternate, it's for all the contracts, it's for all the providers, etc. If anybody can look at them, it's a lot harder to be corrupt when you have people looking at you. Very quickly, I called my 97-year-old aunt today and told her I was going to be here on Model Lake 2. And she said, remember Mike Olin, not Mike Olin Jr., Mike Olin Sr. He had a shoe store, Damon and Irving, and she said, we already brought our shoes here because he was honest. Everybody up here is I'll tell you, is not only honest, but they're sincere and wanting to do good. And that's the model for all of you that I would suggest. Just choose people that you believe in.
Jeff?
Yes, as I said earlier, and as I've said all along for many, many years, we need to fully empower the City Inspector General to investigate and fully audit every alderman, every program, every contract. Absolutely. Openness, transparency, honesty, that is good government. In fact, I've also worked with CPS Inspector General. When Noble Networks improperly got a hold of 30,000 units of CPS children's data, and I found out about this, I brought that to the CPS Inspector General, and they commissioned a full investigation and found out that a Noble employee had stolen all that information and was using that information to recruit neighborhood public schools, undermining the great progress at Lakeview and Amundsen and all of our neighborhood public schools. So I don't talk about it as rhetoric, it is action. I fully believe in supporting our inspector generals in the city.
Okay. Now we get into the hard question. This is the one that I think is it is the most controversial, it seems to me, in the 47th Ward. In the past decade, the 47th Ward has lost hundreds of rental housing units to teardowns, to condo conversions, and other development. I think we all know this. The development has allowed landlords to capitalize on the shifting supply and demand for housing by increasing rents, impacting long-term tenants, and making it more difficult for new renters to move into the 47th Ward. How will you support residents who can no longer afford to live in 47 due to these issues. And we start with Angie Maloney.
As I said in my opening statement, affordability in the 47th Ward is pretty much the reason I jumped into this race. It's personally concerning to me. I might have to leave my home for 2 decades. I know neighbors who are leaving, who are thinking about leaving. It's very concerning. I think we need to preserve the density that we have. First of all, instead of just being reactive, letting the density go away, letting the affordability go away. I think we need to lift the state ban on rent control. What I say to people when I talk about that is that rent control is basically what good landlords already do. My landlord practices what rent control would look like. She does not raise it exorbitant amounts. We also need to put some filters in place so that developers cannot come in and plow through our neighborhood or plow through, purchase up a bunch of 2 flats. It's different if Joe Smith down the street has a 2-flat and converts it. Another issue is if someone's coming in and purchasing wholesale a lot of 2 flats. We need to stop that process from happening at such breakneck speed.
Thanks, Angie. Gus?
I believe that protecting 2 flats and 3 flats, just like bungalows are protected in the city of Chicago, from being converted into single-family homes and constantly lowering the stock of apartments available, and the availability of affordable housing is also directly affected by taxes, which we need to hold the line on real estate taxes. Real estate taxes are a direct result of just bad spending from the city and always going into the pot of real estate taxes. We have shortfalls in pension, real estate taxes. We have, we need more police. Again, they go into real estate taxes. Real estate taxes go up, your landlord has to raise the rents. Real estate taxes go up, affordability goes out the window. And a lot of people are getting priced out. So the best way is to hold the line on taxes, and new developments that are luxury condos, there should be a halt to them. And I plan on forming a community development council made up of youth residents and local business people that will vote on new projects. Because I believe we need from the ground up affordable projects, not just a few units allocated.
Thanks, Gus. Matt Martin.
So there are a number of short and midterm things that we can do. Some of it's unilateral within the Alderman's office, and some of it is a lot of what we've been talking about earlier, which is reaching across ward boundaries to build coalitions to do big stuff. So in terms of things we can do immediately, when you have along our retail corridors these huge buildings that are going up with 20, 30 units, making sure that as many as 25 or 30% of those units are set aside for working class families, and that some of those units not be studios or 1-bedroom apartments, but 3-bedroom apartments for, again, a working class family. Second, making sure that we have vouchers available. CHA is sitting on several $100 million that it's not investing, it's not paying down debt. That's money that we can give to middle and lower income folks to say, hey, we know that your income has stagnated over the last 10 years and your rents have increased by 50% and that you're starting to maybe feel some food instability. That extra $1,000, $2,000 a year, while it might not be big for some folks, can be the difference between being able to stay and go to great schools like McPherson or Lakeview.
Thank you, Matt. Eileen, Doran?
I think we need to start with an affordable housing plan citywide to make sure that the thousands and thousands of people who need affordable housing because they want to live and work in Chicago get taken care of. So there's a lot we can do in our ward, and first of all, most of our ward is zoned for single-family housing, and what that means is on a block like mine, there were 3 buildings, they used to be 6 units, and now we're down to 3 units. We should be able to have a mechanism to get back those lost units. We also need to incentivize saving for 2 flats and 3 flats, which are naturally occurring affordable housing. When we lose that, we lose a lot of the affordability in the ward. And we also need to lift a ban on non-conforming units, things like granny flats or basement apartments or apartments over garages. Those could be affordable ways that we can have more density in the ward. So I have a lot of ideas, and I'll be excited to talk to you about it afterwards.
Thank you. Heather WAY-KITZES.
All right, so this is personal for me as well. I got divorced in 2005. My son Jack was 4 years old, and my husband got our house when I was divorced, which is great. He still lives there. It's fantastic. But I needed to live near him, and the only place I could afford to rent was a garden apartment 1 block away. If it hadn't been for a man with an available garden apartment, I don't know where Jack and I would have lived. I was working at the Chamber of Commerce. I was only making $45,000 a year, and I needed to find a way, because of the court system, to live, and what was in our parenting agreement, to live in Lincoln Park. And a garden apartment allowed me to do that. As time went on, I rented in 2 flats until I recently was remarried 5 years ago. So that kind of affordable housing, I know, is critical to the health of our communities. There's other things we can do as well, looking at master zoning, looking at the zoning overlays that are currently in place, but preserving 2 flats and accessible dwelling units and re-allowing for coach houses and garden apartments and whatnot, I think is very important.
Thank you. KIMBALL?
2 flats were a foundation of Chicago in many ways. My family moved from Wicker Park to the 47th to look after my grandmother after my grandfather died, and 2 flats were what you had. And that was a foundation for the community. It was small entrepreneurs who wished to be homeowners, helped to stabilize the community, and a solid foundation. A basis of St. David's Community Service School like the LCCC or WPA, it would create jobs for people in the community. So things like teacher's aides, after-school program, good elder care, so that people could actually stay in their homes. So if we could have the affordable housing so that people in the communities could be doing services in the community and be able to afford to stay here, look at it, doing wonderful service, that would be a great thing.
Thank you, Kim. Jeff Jenkins?
Like most of the folks here at this table, this one really hits close to home. Me and my wife moved here, like I said, 20 years ago because it was affordable. It was a great place to start our life together. The home we bought is built in 1891. It's a humble little place, and we have no plans on selling or expanding or moving. This is where we want to be. But it's a struggle to maintain because it's gotten increasingly unaffordable in our neighborhood. I think that we need to expand the requirement in large new developments for affordable housing from 10 to 20%. I think an 80-20 ratio is attractive to any developer, and I think that will do well for our community. I also think we need to look at transit-oriented development for some smaller, more affordable units. We absolutely need to adjust zoning to allow for coach houses and accessory dwelling units. And I think we need to change the RS3 zoning code to allow 2 flat owners to go up 1 floor. You occupy 2 and 3, and then you have a nice affordable unit on the 1st floor, as opposed to selling, knocking it down, and having a massive multi-million-dollar new home with no place for that ground runner to run off. I really think we need to preserve the 2 flat and make it more of a 2 plus 1.
Thank you. Michael NEGRON?
So affordability is reached a crisis level, not just here, but across the city. I think we need to go big on affordability, and that means seeking new tools to both develop new affordable units as well as preserve existing units of 2 flats and 3 flats. One area I'd look is I support Mayor Moir's proposal for a public bank. I think one good purpose it could be put to right away would be to finance the construction of new affordable units as well as help preserve 2 flats. I think we need to look to the tax code to incent owners who want to keep units in their buildings affordable for a period of time, offer them knockdown assessments. I want large developers doing work in the ward to do 15 or 20% affordability on site, but we can't over-rely on that because when the market hits a downturn, that will stop. So that's why we need a full package of incentives and initiatives. I support accessory dwelling units, which I think everybody here does, and I'd like to reform the long-term homeowners exemption to help middle-income, long-term homeowners stay in their homes. Thanks.
Okay, another quick one of these little lightning round things because it relates to this. There is a lot of discussion across the city, not just in gentrified wards, but in a lot of places in the city about rent control. Would you favor, this is a yes-no answer, please, or at least as close as you can come. Would you favor rent controls in wards facing the types of pressures we're feeling here in the 47th ward? Should the city of Chicago adopt rent control? Same order.
Yes.
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 A stabilization of percentage that it can go up.
Heather?
I also agree with stabilizing rent, but I don't support just blanket rent control.
There are a lot of ways of doing affordability. I mentioned some. If you want to compare New York to Chicago, I'll take Chicago anything. Thanks very much.
I support rent control on large developments, but I don't want to punish two flat owners, particularly seniors, who look for that rent as income.
Look, I'm open to rent control, but I think everywhere it's been in place the longest, San Francisco and New York City, these are the most expensive markets in America with fastest appearing working class. So if we do it here, we got to find out why and address what those issues are.
Okay, thanks. All right, now we're about halfway through this program here right now, and at the last minute, we got a little question thrown at us here from the Lakeview students. Lakeview, as you know, got a cash infusion of $27 million to tuck point, replace flooring, install much-needed air conditioning, perform much-needed maintenance all over the school. Some projects have not yet been completed. We need functional bathrooms, water fountains that provide safe filtered water, and a ventilated gymnasium. How would you get more funding for Lakeview to fix these basic needs? Okay, a self-serving but hyper-local question, if there ever was one. We start with Gus.
So kids, I'm glad that you're taking part in the whole political process here. I'll tell you, as I mentioned before about TIF money. TIF money, for the students, if you don't know what it is, it's tax incremental financing. It's a fund where taxes are used to develop schools, parks, community infrastructure, but many times, most of the time in Chicago, they're being abused, and they're used by aldermen and by mayors as a slush fund, where they provide millions of dollars to these developers, and in turn, get political contributions. I plan on leaving kids where they belong in the school system, and that way you could have your bathrooms, you could have your filtered water. I still can't believe that we're talking about bathrooms. I remember when I went to Mather High School in '87, we were talking about bathrooms then, we're still talking about bathrooms now, so I definitely got to do something about it.
There are two things that I would do. One is working with other members on City Council to make sure that the sort of improvements that Lakeview is seeing are things that all of us around the city are partnering with. So I would look to West Garfield Park, I would look to South Shore, I would look to West Englewood to say, what do you need in your schools? What do we need up here at Lakeview and Amundsen, and make sure that collectively we are finding the sort of resources that we need. Secondly is pressing for an elected school board, because right now we have a huge capital improvement plan that we're seeing for the first time in years, because it's an election year, surprisingly enough. So we've had these needs in the 47th Ward for a long time. Waters has long needed an annex, we're just getting it now. Audubon has long needed a new roof because there was mold, there was leaking coming through. It's just getting that now. So making sure we're reaching across ward boundaries, but also providing an oversight over those quasi-independent departments like CPS to make sure it's working for us all the time, every year, not just election year.
Thank you. Eileen Dorn.
A quick story. My son is a CBS student, and he was here 2 years ago playing basketball in the gym. And my father, who went to high school in the 50s, said, "Oh, I came to a dance here, and it hasn't changed at all." So I'm really glad that the gym has been renovated along with a lot of other things here at Lakeview, because it's the oldest high school in the state. But clearly not all the needs are met, and it's a great example of why we need to stop adding new schools across the board. No more charter schools, no more new schools until we fully fund the schools that we have, until we make sure all the needs are met. It's another example of why we need an elected school board, because we need people who are going to be accountable to the community, to the students, to the parents of CPS students, who will be on the school board and will make decisions that will work for us. So there's funding issues here. All the schools across our ward need some help, and you can imagine there's even more need across the city, and so we've got to fully fund that before we...
The last time that I was at this school was right before the holiday break. I think it actually was the day the classes were getting out, and I was dropping off a check for $250,000 so that the bathrooms can actually be remodeled. Now, that wasn't coming from me personally, it was coming from my employer, the Chicago Cubs. So how we came to that contribution to this school is getting creative with the Department of Buildings, which is actually or the Public Building Commission, which is actually who funded all the renovations here. We ended up, the Cubs paid for the renovation of the turf outside. They were able to move that $250,000 into the building and take care of the renovations in the building that were students and our communities as a whole is renegotiating those contracts, look at how the work is done, consolidating with other schools within the districts, and looking to corporate partners.
Thanks, Heather. KIMBALL.
In a room full, and I mean full, of citizens of the 47, I'll let you know a little secret. Community involvement is fundamental to participatory democracy. You get what you not just pay for if you're up and down. You get what you demand. And if you do that, the school, so it shall be. I'll remind kids under 18, if they're not 18 yet, if they don't vote yet, their parents do, their families do, and they damn well can participate in democracy even before it. If you want to get the students and the things done, you know, be the squeaky wheel. Make sure it gets done. That's good participatory democracy, and everybody benefits by you folks being here. You're showing how important it is. God bless you.
Thank you. Jeff Jenkins.
Well, I would do what I've been doing for about 10 or 15 years, and that was be a loud, vocal advocate for our neighborhood public schools, not only in the ward, but citywide. I've attended nearly every Board of Education meeting for the past 7 years, and I've spoken out very strongly to fair funding for every neighborhood public school. And I've seen how effective it is when aldermen come down and speak at those Board of Ed meetings. It absolutely moves the needle. So I would head down and I would speak with the power and the authority of the alderman's office, not simply a concerned public school parent. We do need an elected school board. I've been fighting that battle for nearly 10 years, getting it on the ballot twice as a non-binding referendum, knowing that 90% of Chicagoans want it, and I would certainly enjoy the help and the support of everybody here, because we've been fighting this battle for a long time. And let me tell you, the biggest hindrance to an elected school board is Democratic leadership. Democratic leadership has been sitting on every elected school board bill that we have moved. Because I'm a strong independent, because I prioritize public education over the long political careers of folks, I'm willing to say this, and I have led many public actions out in front of Democratic leaders' offices to move us forward to democracy at CPS.
Jeff, Michael, KIMBALL.
So during my time at City Hall, I actually helped Mayor Moore move funding for Lakeview through the bureaucracy. I helped him on a couple of other investments at 47, as well as throughout the city. And I can say a couple of things, both local and more citywide. I'll start with citywide. I can attest that too often capital decisions are political. And so I think we do need to have an elected school board. And I would like to see a rational public approach to capital planning, one that is transparent and people can participate in, and cannot be as influenced by who the mayor is and the different aldermen that he is or she is trying to police. Locally, we want to work with school communities and organizations like Rural Community to develop a plan of needed investments and supports for every school, elementary to high school, and then make sure I'm being the squeaky wheel and pushing City Hall and CPS to make good on investing those investments that we need. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Angie Maloney.
I'm going to echo what most folks have said. We need a representative school board. And I think our school board needs to include students and teachers because they know what the schools need best. And we cannot afford to not listen to your voices anymore. We need an alderman who will insist on fully funded schools, who will prioritize projects, especially ones that are matters of health, such as lead in the water, mold issues, air conditioning, in all schools. So I gotta say, if it's for a MALONEY project, I'm sorry, we gotta put first things first. We gotta get the mold out, we gotta get the lead out of the water in your school and in all the schools. Then we can talk about making the bathrooms look a little bit better. Then we can go on to the next level of our needs.
Thank you. There has been, there's just another opportunity here for a lightning round because elected school board, everybody loves elected school boards, but there are people who say that you need to have something of a hybrid. You can't have an all-elected school board, there need to be a few appointees or something like that. So let's just do a quick down the line, same order, elected or hybrid. We're starting with Gus. Elected or hybrid?
Definitely elected school board.
Just need to fully elected, every member would be.
Fully elected, yes, every member elected. I don't believe in appointees. Appointees by the mayor only creates czars and those politicians that instead of representing us, the citizens of the 47th ward, citizens of Chicago, will, just be stooges of whoever appointed them.
Again, we're going to ask to keep that as brief as possible. That's okay. All right.
Fully elected, just like every other school district in Illinois.
A fully elected school board is what we need.
Heather?
Hybrid.
Joe?
Hybrid, but again, I find Patrick very smart. It always believes in balance of power. And by having a little bit of both, you do balance that. So not one group over another, but all groups working together.
Thanks, Jeff.
Everybody loves an elected school board when they're running for office. I noticed that in the mayoral debates. We've been fighting this fight for a long time. Fully elected school board.
Michael?
Fully elected.
Angie?
Fully elected, but we need to make sure that money is not driving who gets elected. Because we can get a charter school for money.
That's always been one of the criticisms, that you might get more than you want. All right, you know what? It's time for us to just take a little applause break here. I want to thank all these people for what they've been through, for staying on point and doing it in 60 seconds or less. Let's talk about policing. Chicago, most people would acknowledge, has a problem with its policing. While the vast majority of officers in the Chicago Police Department serve honorably and well, incidents of abuse and violence, often involving residents of color, create distrust in the community and make fighting crime more difficult, and they cost taxpayers millions in civil settlements. Several approaches to implement meaningful civilian oversight of CPD have been proposed, including at least one that calls for a civilian oversight of the police department. What specific policies would you support to help address Chicago's police problems, and why? And we're beginning with Matt.
So I have a lot to say about this. I, in the Attorney General's office, worked on police reform. I wrote the complaint that our office filed. I found the experts that we've been relying upon to help us chart this new course for the city. And I did a first draft of most parts of the consent decree, especially around discipline and training. So I have a lot of thoughts that can't be boiled down into 60 seconds. So if you want to chat with me more about it later, let's have a good chat. But quickly, we need a consent decree in place. It's going to be overseen by a federal judge. We need an elected oversight panel, like GAPA or CPAC. Those are the starting points, not what Alderman Reuters is put forth, which is something that isn't tailored to what Chicago's needs are, and that's something that came from the mayor's office. That's not going to work, and hopefully one of the next mayors, working with the new city council, that's going to change. And finally, we need to start addressing root causes too, because when we're putting officers in a position where they have to respond to all these incidents of instability, food instability, housing instability, education instability, we're not training or supervising them appropriately to handle that. We can do better, and we can do it right now.
Thank you, Matt. EILEEN.
As a social worker, I know what the trauma that people experience when they live in neighborhoods full of violence does to them, and that long-term outcomes. And I worked with homeless women back in the 90s, and I saw how the police treated them very differently than they treated me. So there's no question in my mind we need community oversight. We need a community oversight board, and there's some options that are available that we can put into place and implement very quickly. And I think the next city council and the next mayor need to do that quickly. I also know that we need to change training as a mental health worker. We need more social workers. We need all the police to be trauma informed, because so many people they're coming up against are dealing with mental health, addiction, and some kind of trauma. And so we need trauma-informed policing. And lastly, we need to reopen mental health centers, because when we lose the mental health services across the board in Chicago, then we have more trauma, more crisis, more violence. Thank you.
Thank you, EILEEN. Heather?
So I sat in this very auditorium in 2012 when then Superintendent Gary McCarthy stood on the stage and told us that Well, guess what? Here we are in 2019, the staffing level in my district, one of the largest districts in the city, is nowhere near what it was 7 years ago. So I think the first order of business is to hold someone's feet to the fire to make sure that we get the police officers back into our district that we are owed. I also think that it's really important to do what we can as a community to make sure that we all feel safe and secure here. That's the number one thing. Whether or not the crime increases are real or perceived, if you feel unsafe taking your garbage out at 10 o'clock at night like I do, then we have work to do. So that's my comment.
Well, oversight is always important. That's part of transparency and accountability. On the other hand, if you think it's fun or easy to take down a 300-pound belligerent person on drugs, you try it someday. Try it. Whether they're armed or not, you try it. The police officers try to run a hospital with hospitals. I always say it. Try running the city without them. They're the foundation, they're the blue line that keeps safety here. We need to respect them, they need to respect everybody. It's not either or, it's all of the above. Having said that, I'm going to go back to the Depression. In the Depression era, there might have been 40 or 50 kids in a classroom in this very room and in this very school, but you could hear a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop. That wasn't a matter of money. In the Depression, people didn't have money. They had values. And if we have values that St. Teresa says, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, everybody respects everybody, everybody tries to work with everybody, and
Jeff Jenkins?
Well, I absolutely support the consent decree. We need to get that put in place. I would work closely with the superintendent and the mayor and, of course, community leaders to make sure that we hold our officers accountable to the highest standards of policing. But we also need to train and support our police officers and their families. They're putting their lives on the line each and every day. Now, I work all across Chicago, not only with my citywide nonprofit, but the work I do with the Mid-South United States End Dog Fan campaign, primarily on the south and west sides, working with young men who were involved in dog fighting. It was always about going after root causes. We would give the police what they needed, but we also brought in positive reinforcement dog training classes, veterinary care, same things these communities that I work in each and every day need. We need anti-violence programs, mentoring programs, and we need to fully fund each and every one of our neighborhood schools and our neighborhood parks, which I've been working on for a dozen years, so young people have real opportunities and real hope, and they can turn away from gangs and guns.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael NEGRON?
We need a comprehensive approach to public safety. I think in the community it starts with ensuring that we have a more engaged police presence. I'd like to see more frequent CAPS meetings. I want to see police out on foot, on bikes. I think we have to take a real look at manpower. I appreciate Heather's point, and we need to work with the surrounding elements to just understand if we're at the right level. But we're not an island, and so we have to, as a city, address the root causes of violence, and I think that means having, the next mayor needs to have a serious strategy to promote economic development and job creation on the south and the west sides of the city. I think that means completing the job when it comes to police reform, fully complying with the consent decree and reforming our police board to have a bigger civilian voice. I think we need to invest in youth programs, after school, summer jobs, mentoring. And then we need to pass sensible and comprehensive gun control at the state level, and then hopefully, if we beat Trump in 2020, at the federal level.
We need the consent decree, we need to enforce the consent decree, and there's a lot in there that will actually help police do their jobs. But we also need independence, where the police department is not just beholden to the mayor or the union. We need CPAC. I like CPAC. GAP is all right. And we also need to make sure that we're providing our police department with the resources it needs so that officers are trained to respond in the best way in high-stakes situations, and that their work environment gives them the staffing, the proper situations to be able to perform their best with the clearest head while they're on the job. This is something that will help police and help communities as well. We need to rebuild trust. The civilian oversight will help with that as well. And we need to go beyond to make sure we're having conversations between the communities and the police as well.
Thank you, Anthony. KATSAFAROS.
I believe in civilian oversight, but I also believe in community involvement with our local police officers. They've been getting a bad rep lately for a few bad apples, and speaking to police officers from 19th District at my restaurant, these are veteran coppers that have never seen morale lower than it is right now. That's something we don't need, is low morale for the people that are in charge of protecting us. Their suicide rates are up. And it's a problem that's going to go way beyond this forum and way beyond one simple answer. We ask them to be enforcers of the law. At the same time, they have to be field psychiatrists. So there's a part of the consent decree that I really agree with, and that's continued ed. Continued education, which is not provided to police officers right now. They show them different applications on how to deal with people. I have continued ed for my food license. They showed me how to wash my hands every 3 years. You know, real estate agents have continued ed. Police officers need it.
Thank you, Gus. Matt Martin. No, are we done? We're done, aren't we? I just wanted to hear more. That's all. We're going to move on from policing to mental health clinics, which of course is tied into policing and has already been raised here. But here's our formal question. In 2011, the city closed 7 of its 12 community mental health clinics. As a result, many of the city's most vulnerable and poor residents now lack access to mental health services, particularly in certain neighborhoods. Media accounts have suggested that Chicago has far fewer publicly funded mental health clinics than other major cities. East Los Angeles has 15 such clinics. The Bronx alone has 73. Is Chicago doing enough to provide mental health services to underserved areas? And if not, how will you address this as an alderman? DORDEK begins.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm a social worker and I work in the mental health field. And it is essential, mental health is such a drain on our society. It's a drain on people's ability to function well, for kids to function in school. And so the cost of having those clinics open and paying the people who are providing the services, really, now that we've lost them, we see how much we've lost, and the cost we're paying is so much worse than what it would have been if we kept those mental health clinics around. There's been a program in Avondale they passed a budget, at the last election, they passed a little tax to provide an extra mental health clinic, but not everywhere that needs it, particularly those neighborhoods that are plagued by violence, can afford to have a tax to pay for a new mental health clinic. That's something that the city needs to take the mantle up on, and we need to provide the mental health service, which will save us money in the end.
Thanks, Eileen. Heather?
So for a lot of the issues that I've been, or the things that I've talked about, like how do we take care of the ward, just like here at home, how do we take care of our own backyard? But like my one big issue from citywide that I really want to focus on is reopening the mental health clinics that were closed and expanding those services to all Chicagoans, moving the barriers to the care that we need. Some people need it more than others. Mental health care is very, very expensive. A lot of it is not covered by insurance, and a lot of people don't have insurance still. So we need to provide access to those who are most vulnerable. Personally, I have been touched by substance abuse and alcohol. The power that happens when people have access to the right care and providing the front-end services will save us so much in the long run. I always think about just what can we do to preserve our common welfare and focus on that. And if we just focus on our common welfare, there's a lot that we can accomplish in this city.
Thank you. KIMBALL?
Again, a penny of prevention is worth a dollar of cure. The earlier we start, the better the outcomes. And I mentioned my global energy independence program that provides clean, renewable energy and save 2 to 3 trillion with a T annually. That's globally. That's $1 trillion in the United States, which is more than enough to pay for universal health care and education. And if you have universal health care, the issue of community mental health centers almost becomes moot because it's an integrated system, inpatient, outpatient, and the more we integrate it, the more we focus on prevention, the more we focus on wellness and developing healthy families, remember those, and healthy communities, remember those, and the rights and responsibilities going together is empowerment. Rights without responsibilities is entitlement. If we can, Elgin Mental Health Center, when it was first done, was a farm. From the Civil War to the 1950s, it was a farm. We can put together a place for the homeless, but have a system that works better.
Thank you, Kimball. Jeff Jenkins.
You know, someone who has been working in communities on the south and west sides, not only myself, but with my wife and with my 2 young children, I see firsthand the terrible, dramatic effects of closing down those mental health facilities. And it would absolutely be a priority of mine as Alderman to get them reopened. There are several ways we can do it. We're not talking about an extraordinary amount of money. Repurposing some TIF funds right off the bat would give us more than enough money to open up each and every mental health facility that was closed down. And again, if we empower the city inspector general to audit every contract, every city department, there would be more than enough money to get these mental health facilities open immediately.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael Monroe.
So I think there's an increased recognition that mental health is a critical part of addressing all of our challenges, whether it's education, safety, housing. I can say that when I was at City Hall, I worked closely with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless on a program that was focused on housing about 100 homeless CPS students. And an important part of the funding that we used for that program was beyond housing. It was about ensuring that counseling and other services were available to those children and their families. And so mental health is critical to solving our biggest challenges. I think the mayor made a mistake in closing those clinics. And I think the next mayor and the new governor need to prioritize increasing our investment in mental health to open more clinics. And then again, have a holistic view to how mental health fits into addressing all of our different challenges that we are facing as a city.
Thank you, Michael. Angie Maloney.
Yeah, I think it's pretty basic. We need to reopen those clinics. I will echo what Eileen and Kimball said, that we're paying for it now. We need to put our money into some prevention and reopen those clinics. I see the effect that obstacles to proper mental health care and as well as health care have on students and their families. So as a teacher, I see this in our schools, and the schools have to deal with it as well. So again, prevention is where we need to be focusing and reopen those clinics. I am optimistic that as the state moves in a different direction, that we can get the state to pay for some of the Medicaid bills, some of the bills that have prevented folks from using their insurance and prevented, caused doctors to refuse care because they knew they weren't going to get paid by the state. So I am optimistic in that respect.
Thank you, Angie. KATSAFAROS.
So this past Thanksgiving, Marmalade Restaurant donated some food to the area churches that we were feeding the homeless. And this year I volunteered as well at St. Anne's. Michael NEGRON was there as well. And we were feeding the homeless. We took time off of football to volunteer for some community service in our neighborhood. Later that day, I joined my family for Thanksgiving dinner, and a couple of my cousins that moved here from Greece about a year and a half ago told me, how do you have homeless people, in this country? We've been here a year and a half, and we're on our feet. You helped us out a little bit in the beginning, but we're on our feet. We're making money. We have our own place. Are they all scam artists? I said, no. They're mental health patients. They're mental health issues, all of them. So we really need to reopen these mental health clinics. We need to provide funding for proper mental health clinics, not the rundown ones that were closed. And it keeps these people out of the penal system where they do not belong. It's simply inhumane.
Thank you, guys. Matt Martin.
This isn't just a mental health issue. This isn't just about mental health clinics. This is a budgetary issue. And as I mentioned earlier, our budget reflects our values. When Mayor Emanuel came into office in 2011 and saw, wow, city finances are in terrible shape, what happened? We didn't start bringing in revenue in a more progressive way. We didn't start to see the sort of oversight, inspector general, all this stuff we've been talking about. We saw regressive taxation in the forms of increased tickets, especially in communities that have already been over-policed. We saw our mental health clinics have, and we saw 50 schools closed. I think that's immoral, that's wrong. We knew it then, and we know it now. So I just find this so incredibly frustrating that we all agree on this stage what people were organizing around 7 years ago. So we can find the money. Our city is not poor. Go downtown. Our city is not poor. The idea is we need to care about everybody all across the city to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Thank you. It'd be interesting to see forums like this in some other boards in other parts of the city to see if there's as much agreement as there is at this table. It would be fascinating to see. Our next question is kind of a very sensitive one. Several recent studies have highlighted the role that racial and ethnic segregation plays in Chicago in comparison to other large cities. Subsequent inequitable education and job opportunities are in part responsible for the comparatively smaller economic growth of our city. According to the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, North Side neighbors tend to have the highest rates of housing discrimination in the city. Do you believe the 47th Ward is sufficiently welcoming of people of all races, classes, and economic backgrounds? And if not, what will you do about it? We start with that.
All right, so I believe that diversity is important to every community, right? It takes all kinds of people. We learn from each other. It's important to have different socioeconomic, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds living together. It breeds safety, a sense of community, and learning from one another, and it's a great way to strengthen a community. The way I look at this for the 47th Ward is, are we inclusive? Who are we serving? And are we removing the barriers of entry to people who are not exactly like us? So housing is a great way to look at that. We talked about that a little bit. At our very original forum, which was about affordable housing in October, I referenced the 2 blocks of Hermitage that I live on that have single-family homes. I live in a 6-flat with a coach house. There's big apartment buildings bookending the corners. So I live next door to a nice young family. There's families in my building. There's a single mom across the street. There's some older people. There's a great mix of people in the 2 blocks that I live on, and I think that's representative of what we're looking for.
Thank you, Heather. Kimball?
So ethnic diversity is always a good thing on any number of levels in built a country. Having said that, safety is important, education is important. I would like to see every community, every area of Chicago, and far beyond, that's my books, on how to have every school a world-class school, have every neighborhood as safe as it can be. You can walk in down the streets, people would sleep in the parks in the summer during the Depression. Yeah. So, you know, it's not values, it's not money, it's values. And if we get those values, then we can solve those problems, not just with some, but for all of the people, because if you don't solve it for everybody, you're not solving it for anybody. The more we design the system to be win-win, you'll have diversity, you'll have fairness, and you'll have a balance of people working together for the common good.
Thank you, Jenkins.
I absolutely think the 47th Ward is a warm and welcoming one. You know, I've been here 20 years, and I have a nice, wide group of neighbors who are really warm and welcoming. Actually, my computer as well. I met him the first day he moved in. You know, that said, I don't think we were always as warm and welcoming. I know my next door neighbor, Conchetta, she came over right after the war. She was married to an African-American man, and they had some real problems. But that's not the case anymore. You know, and I believe it's a matter of really living our values, which is something that I have strived to do, and my family has strived to do, both with the work we do all across the city, and of course the work we do advocating for more affordable ward and more accessible and equitable funding for our neighborhood public schools. Because really, diversity revolves around affordability. And we need to be an affordable ward if we're going to be a diverse ward. That is key. That is why all of this stuff comes into play. Full funding for our neighborhood public schools, funding our neighborhood public parks, make sure we have plenty of affordable options for folks who maybe don't look exactly like me to move into the ward and become part of this great, vibrant, wonderful 47th Ward.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael, NEGRON?
Let me say that Jeff is a great neighbor. I grew up in a predominantly Latino, low-income neighborhood, actually Kedzie and Arlington, so not too far from you.
I never.
And it's a changing neighborhood today. It's becoming less diverse. People are getting priced out, and so our city is segregated, and it's due to a legacy of segregation by law, redlining in the housing markets, and today it's often housing crisis. And so I think an aggressive, comprehensive approach to affordability is our best tool in dealing with segregation and increasing diversity. And I think that's something that would be a big priority for me, and also I would argue that the next mayor needs to make it one of their top 3 or 4 priorities.
Let's hear it for Humboldt Park. Angie Maloney.
We have lost 5,000 Latinos in the 47th Ward over the past 10 years. And some of that is due to affordability, but I think we also need to look at who are we attracting and why. For example, with our businesses. When I lived at Lawrence and Ashland, there were 3 Mexican grocery stores on Lawrence. 3, within the span of a few blocks. And they were gone before the Marianos got there. So it's not, you can't blame the Marianos. There's something else about the population changing. Are we welcoming to those Latinos who left? Doesn't seem like it. I also think we need to make sure what we're valuing in our schools is not just test scores, but what people bring with various backgrounds. A lot of people talk about turning around schools, such as McPherson, that's 75% Latinx. And when I hear that as a teacher, I hear that they want some of those kids gone. And I've actually heard some neighbors say as much, which is disgusting. So I don't think we're sufficiently welcoming.
Thank you, Angie.
Yes? I think the 47th Ward and its people are welcoming. I've seen it firsthand in my business. No one loves diversity more than a business owner. It takes all walks of folks to support different businesses. If you come to Marmalade any given weekend, you'll see folks, white, black, Latino, from all over the city. The problem is affordability, where they can't actually live here. And then the problem is rooted even further, because we are diverse as a city, but our neighborhoods are segregated. We're the most segregated city probably in the Union. And that is decades and decades, if not centuries, of keeping black and brown people down with public aid and making them part of that vicious cycle where it is very, very hard to get out of. I've seen this firsthand. I was a real estate developer on the south side for 5-6 years, and I saw the vicious cycle whenever I'm talking to 3-4 generations of one family, and everyone's been on public aid because there's no out. It's not they don't want to work. It's not they're lazy. There's no out for these kids from the high school level all the way on to young adults.
Thank you, Gus. Matt Martin.
Our neighborhood, our ward, is inclusive, or at least it wants to be. I think I knock on doors, I hear that being something that people constantly bring up, and I know I personally am a beneficiary of that diversity. As Jeff alluded to, and Michael as well, 40 or 50 years ago, I would have been prohibited in various ways from owning my home in Lincoln Square, whether it was redlining or blockbusting or restrictive covenants. So I am here because of this neighborhood's commitment to diversity and inclusion. But I think what we're missing is the opportunity for folks to live their values. And I think a lot of that starts with empowering our neighborhood associations. I helped start up the Heart of Lincoln Square Neighbors, and recently I was really heartened to see them put out this value statement about development that said in very specific language, this is what we want to see, this is what we value, not just big ephemeral language, but specific policies that will help us make sure that development by development, change by change, that diversity actually happens. I think we need to have all of our neighbors associations do that, make sure a neighbors association covers every part of the ward.
Thank you, Matt. Eileen Dordek.
I think a lot of us live in the city because we want diversity. We send our children to public schools because we want diversity. But what that diversity looks like really does depend on where you live and the affordability and the welcoming that people feel. I think our ward is welcoming, but we don't always walk the walk when can be misused. We want our character of our ward to be a place where all people feel like they can live. So we need to get more affordability in the ward. We need to ensure that students who are at our schools and thriving get to stay in these schools as we make them better. And we need to continue to focus on making sure that people can live in the city where they want to live. And there's a lot of things that we can do in policy to do that.
Thank you, Ellie. Our next question actually expands on this previous question, but it focuses more on the City Council. The Chicago City Council's tradition of aldermanic prerogative allows aldermen to exercise significant control over zoning issues with their ward. Some would propose limiting or eliminating aldermanic privilege. For example, some argue that if approval of affordable housing projects were handled on a citywide basis, Chicago could achieve a more equitable distribution of affordable housing and build more units. Do you support limitations on aldermanic prerogative, such as proposed for affordable housing or other things? Will you support it when you become an alderman? Why or why not? And we start with him, right?
I would rather have the community prerogatives than aldermanic prerogatives, which goes back to community participation and participatory democracy and all that. The more that input is from the community, the better it will be all around. Prerogatives as such aren't bad. I would love to see the 47th be a model for the city. I would love to see the city be a model for the nation on how to design systems to work for everybody at all times. The more we can integrate the systems and the more that we can have that input from the community as to what the needs are, the more we're going to be able to succeed at reaching those. And it should be done on a team effort, everybody participating for the good of all. That's how you really get things done.
Jeff, Jenkins?
I would absolutely be in favor of minimizing aldermanic prerogative around being able to, unilaterally veto affordable housing. I don't think any one individual should have that kind of power. I believe that needs to be a community decision. I believe it needs to be a city decision. I believe any time an alderman wants to veto all affordable housing in this ward, that needs to be listened to and heard in the city council and throughout the community. That said, I believe that aldermanic prerogative, when used sparingly and purposely, can be a great tool. Developers have a tremendous amount of power in the city of Chicago. And a lot of times they're tied to aldermen who are not necessarily in your ward. When your alderman works with you and for you, he can stop some types of development that simply wouldn't be good for the community. So I wouldn't want to eliminate it totally, but around areas of affordable housing, absolutely. We need to make some changes.
Thank you, Michael.
So yes, I'm supportive of having some limits on the use of aldermanic prerogative with respect to affordability. I think when the question is yes or no, I don't believe someone should be able to address their respective affordability challenges in a balanced way. For example, I think in our community we're going to need a mix of new units, but also preserving 2 flats and 3 flats. So how do we find the right balance and involve the community in this? I think there's one other element to why it makes sense to take a look at aldermanic prerogative, and that's the fact that aldermanic prerogative is what Ed Burke used to shake down the Burger King. And so there are other elements that come, other bad elements that come with having such sweeping powers for aldermen. And I think we really need to take a look at that with respect to zoning and permitting, so that gives one person who has the ability to really make life hard for their businesses, either to benefit their campaigns or themselves personally.
Thank you, Michael. Angie Maloney.
I agree. I think we need some limits on aldermanic prerogative. I think it should be restricted but not completely eliminated. I've been saying all along that we can use aldermanic prerogative to put some of those filters in place where the developers are coming in and plowing through our neighborhood. An alderman should be able to put up some filters using aldermanic prerogative to stop the deconversion, to stop the demolitions if there's a rapid fire. And I think with some more oversight, we can also have the Inspector General seeing when the aldermanic prerogative is at play and seeing if it's an ethical use of it.
Thank you, Annie. KATSAFAROS.
I don't believe any politician politician should have that kind of power. They have the privilege to just deny whether it's affordable housing or a business permit or a liquor license. As I mentioned in one of the earlier questions, I believe in forming a community development council made up of the residents of the 47th ward as well as the business community on equal levels, where we talk about every project. And your alderman should just be the representative of what you want, what your will is in City Hall. I have been on the receiving end of extortion from aldermen. We are lucky in the 47th ward to have an alderman like Mayor Powar that cares about business, cares about growth, cares about the schools, and doesn't abuse his power. But the majority of them do. I was on the receiving end of extortion from Miranda Troutman on Southside projects that I was doing, and her Albuquerque bad. And trust me, it's no place to be, no place any of us need to be. No one should have that kind of power over the people.
Thank you, Gus. Matt Martin.
I love the question because it really, I think, identifies one of the core problems of City Council historically, which is it's a legislative body that really doesn't legislate. It really pushes all of this decision-making, this policy-making authority over to the mayor's office. And so while at the ward level we're having these decisions, like literally parcel by parcel, it's taking up so much time. And I don't get me wrong, I think that the community needs to have a voice, must have a voice, and I want to continue that. But imagine if at least some of the alderperson's time, some of the staff's time was put towards what Eileen had mentioned earlier about a comprehensive affordability plan throughout the city. This conversation, I think, starts to get at that. That's where we're going towards. And so I think we need to start asking these sorts of questions, not just about aldermanic prerogatives as it applies to affordable housing specifically, but all types of prerogative around development and services beyond that.
Thank you, ma'am. Eileen Norton.
We talk about aldermanic prerogative like it's law. It's not a law, it's a culture that we have, that City Council and the mayors have let develop over decades. And I do agree with Matt, it's the legislative body of the City Council needs to take responsibility for their legislative role. And as alderman, I would do that. I would step in and try to take control of the legislative aspect of the City Council and not just let the mayor have total control. I mean, that's why we have aldermanic prerogative, because it allows the aldermen to have their fiefdoms. And I am really proud to live in the 47th ward with the Mayor Powar where that hasn't been the case. We want to elect somebody who's going to be a public servant, who's going to serve the needs of the public. So yes, absolutely, we need to have input from the community. Yes, absolutely, the alderman needs to work with the community to figure out what we want for development, but we need an overall affordable housing plan that will supersede the ability of people to keep people they don't want on their own boards. So I'm looking forward to working in City Council to change this.
Thank you. Heather?
So a couple of things. Since 2003, I've been a member of Alderman Tunney's Community Directed Development Council, and he put that apparatus into place right when he came into office in 2003. The very first thing that we did was a full environmental scan, which led to a master plan and helping us as a ward establish our priorities for development, business attraction, and infrastructure improvements that might be necessary down the road. I would adopt that very similar model. They take a lot of place from Alderman Tunney. I've been working side by side with him for a really long time, and I think he's done some great things in the 44th ward. I think if we take the time to create a plan, it will eliminate the need for so much aldermanic prerogative locally, because we'll know where we're going. If we know where we're going, then it won't be piecemeal, development here, development there, something to say yes to, something to say no to. But I firmly believe that the community input part of that is what is the most important.
Thank you. You know, if these guys don't get elected, they could get a job in broadcasting. They're incredible at their timing. I can't believe it. Everything is like this. So I would like to challenge you a little further here, because we got about 2-3 more questions to go. We only have 10 minutes. So I don't know, can we switch it to 30 seconds? Let's switch it down, right? Let's put more pressure on. Here's our next question. Will you vote in favor? Oh wait, let's see. This is going to be Jeff, right? Jeff Jenkins is going to start. Will you vote in favor of mandating that the council elect its own committee chairs, or leave the decision up to the mayor? 30 seconds.
Absolutely, the council candidates who want committee chairs. That is the job of the alderman, that is the job of the legislative body. We elected a mayor, we did not elect a czar. So I am absolutely for that.
Michael? All right, let's start breaking the rules.
Yes, the council should elect its own chairs. I think that's very logical.
I agree that council should elect its own chairs. I think we also need to build a culture in the council where it makes the right choices and operates independently from what the mayor wants.
Absolutely. The reason Ed Burke was the finance committee chair in all these years is because he promised he would have run against Daley and he got appointed to the chair. The mayor should not have that kind of power.
Yes, but I think the mandate language is a little odd because the city council already has the authority to do that. It just feeds it to the mayor's office. So it should just do the things that it's already empowered to do.
Okay, that's true. It's not a law.
Yeah, the city council has the ability to elect their own leadership. Right now, if they don't do it, they absolutely need to elect their own leadership and elect the people who are chairing their committees.
Heather? Oh, let's get that microphone. Heather.
So this is one of the items in the People First Pledge that I signed for last week. It also includes term limits on committee chairmanships. I also think that and this won't be popular probably, but maybe it will. I don't think that the election to the chairmanship should be based on seniority. I think it should be based on skill set and background.
All above, and term limits can actually enhance participatory democracy by getting more people involved.
All right. The next question is going to be started by Michael McBrone. Number of, at least a couple of the candidates for mayor are saying that the way to get our budget into alignment is to figure out ways to cut pensions for people who are already retired and who are about to retire. Do you think that that's a good way to go? Is one way to raise money or reduce the budget to cut pensions of people who have already served the city?
No, I think number one, it's unconstitutional. I think if you change the Constitution, the state would be sued, the city would be sued, and now we go to the federal Constitution. So I don't think it's a short-term answer to try and get the authority to cut people's pensions. I think we need to bring all the stakeholders at the table, labor, city government, and talk about other ways in which to address our future costs. But I just don't think you should cut people's pensions, and I think as a strategy, it won't go anywhere anyway. So I think it's bad politics.
Okay. Angie?
Yeah, the Illinois Supreme Court has been clear on this. We can't cut people who are, the pension of people who are already retired. As for new hires, that's been suggested to me as a teacher. I go to the door and they say, we need to cut the pensions of the people who are hired in the future. And I say, well, we've got a teacher shortage, especially in special ed. How are you going to attract people to those jobs? So we need to try other things before we even talk about cutting pensions. I don't think it's a good idea. I know we have a crisis. We have not tried a LaSalle Street tax. We need to try other things.
Yes?
I like how these mayoral candidates are already, some of them are already collecting a couple of pensions and working to stack a third one. We want to talk about cutting their pensions. What we need to do is cut their pensions. No aldermen, no mayors, no state representatives, state senators on down the line should receive pensions. All aldermen is here, we elected once, and they're eligible for a six-figure pension for life. It's ridiculous.
Martin?
I think it is important to remember what pensions actually are, which is the opportunity for folks who oftentimes, most of the time, earn a very modest salary with relatively little salary increases to retire with dignity. That's what we're talking about. So if you want to take that person who is maybe getting a $40,000 or $50,000 a year pension in our neighborhood, where it's like maybe just a little bit allowing them to stay in their home, and we want to take 15, 20, 25% away from them, that's not right. I think, again, our city's not broke. There are other things we can do.
I'm sitting here looking at my mom, who was a CPS teacher for 23 years and gets a pension from CPS. And she never paid into Social Security, and I don't firemen. It's a promise. We need to find other ways to take care of our budget issues.
Heather.
I agree. We can't pull the rug out from under people who've been counting on us, who've worked hard to serve and protect us as citizens. But I think we need to look at how we do this going forward. We're going to have to get really creative, but you know what? It's a real deal. We made a promise to these people, and we need to keep it.
Kim?
I certainly agree that we should pay the teachers, the firework, and the policemen, people who've done wonderful things for us. Yeah, absolutely. They're pretty much right now. We can renegotiate in the future, that's fine. I think I'm the only person who can not only pay off the pensions, but actually cut taxes. But I'm happy to share it with everybody else because it has nothing about any individual, but we can actually cut taxes after good science stuff.
Okay. One last one. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, we absolutely cannot go ultimate constitution to claw back that money. These people paid into the system, they need to retire with dignity and security. Now, going forward, we have some conversations, absolutely, but only if labor, the city, financial experts all come together and agree to find a path forward that again allows people who work in lifetime service for our city to retire with dignity and security. That is the key, most important thing. We need to look at progressive revenue solutions, progressive income tax, TIF reform. There's a way to run the ship without going to hard-working citizens and clawing that money from them.
And finally, it was revealed by the Chicago Tribune a couple months ago that the private contractors that are supposed to be